Fluorescent lights hummed over the bank lobby, cold as an autopsy room. A red stamp bled across a form. My daughter-in-law smiled with courtroom calm and said, "She's no longer mentally competent." The manager nodded. A pen clicked like a trigger. I stepped out from the shadows and watched her face crack just a hair. My name is Lucille Lucy Brennan. I am 70 years old, and I walked into Birch Avenue Bank to hear my own life signed away with a forged doctor and a counterfeit signature. But what they didn't know was, before I continue, tell me where you're watching from, and hit like and subscribe if you've ever been betrayed by family. Because what happened next wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a plan. A quiet one written in fake letters and digital passwords. And the only thing more dangerous than being underestimated is realizing it too late. The sound of machines was the lullaby of my youth steel arms clanging gears grinding against each other, the hiss of compressed air cutting through the night. I was 19 when I started at the Naval Machine Shop doing double shifts to help my mother pay off our mortgage. The air was thick with oil and salt, a kind of permanence that clung to your clothes. I learned early that precision was survival. Every bolt, every decimal point, every line on the ledger had to match. If it didn't, someone got hurt, usually the smallest person in the room. That habit followed me through everything: marriage, motherhood, grief. When you count things long enough, you start to notice what goes missing. Patrick used to tease me about it. "Lucy, if the world ends, you'll be there matching receipts for the apocalypse." He wasn't wrong. But he also knew that order was how I kept fear from eating me alive. Patrick was a quiet man, a machinist too, with hands that smelled like metal and soap. When Adam was born, he swaddled him with the same care he used for tightening a bearing, gentle but exact. We built our life like that, careful, predictable, made of small routines. Coffee at 6, lunch at the shop, groceries every Friday, bills paid by Monday. When Adam was 5, he used to sit at the kitchen table while I balanced the books. He'd ask what the numbers meant, and I'd tell him, "They're promises, sweetheart. Every number is a promise someone kept or broke." He didn't understand then, but he liked the sound of it. The years blurred together. We never had much, but we always had enough, and that was our pride. I still remember the day Adam brought Bree home. It was late summer cicadas buzzing like a low fever in the air. She was young, glossy, with a voice that made everything sound like a compliment, even when it wasn't. She called me Mrs. Brennan with that soft, practiced smile women use when they're already deciding what to call you behind your back. Patrick squeezed my hand under the table, and I thought, she's a bit much, but maybe he needs that. At their wedding in our own backyard, she cried, as if she'd waited her whole life for that moment. I believed her. I wanted to. When Patrick died 3 years later, Bree was the first to show up saying, "Don't you worry, Mom. I'll help you handle everything online." She meant well, I thought. I let her forward my mail, set up paperless billing, even add herself to one of the joint accounts just in case. The first time she used my credit card by mistake, I brushed it off. It was for Skylar's school trip, she said. I didn't want to embarrass her. She was family. And when family crosses a line, we tell ourselves it's just a misunderstanding. I didn't know it then, but that was the first cut. After Patrick's funeral, the house grew quiet in a way that sound couldn't fill. The refrigerator hummed louder, the faucet dripped slower, and I started keeping a folder, a blue one for every letter, bill, and receipt that came through the door. I labeled it File 01. I didn't realize it would become my lifeline. Holidays changed too. Thanksgiving used to be laughter and gravy stains. Now it was polite smiles and Bree on her phone checking something for work. I'd catch her whispering, "She's fine. Just old habits." I'd pretend not to hear. Adam would squeeze my shoulder, eyes pleading, "Don't start." The first real red flag came with the Veterans Charity. I'd been donating for years. One evening, I asked Bree to help me send the check online. "Oh, don't worry," she said, fingers tapping quick over her phone. I already transferred it. But when the charity's thank you letter never arrived, I called. They had no record of my donation. I checked my bank app. The money had gone to a company I'd never heard of, Northlake Care Solutions, LLC. I thought maybe it was a processing service. I didn't push further. I wanted peace more than proof. Winter that year was long, the kind that seeps into your bones. Adam worked nights at the plant. Skylar was growing fast. Bree was busy always between errands, appointments, and taking care of things. I'd find her mail in my box sometimes. I didn't question it. That's how trust erodes not all at once, but through 1,000 tiny permissions. Then came the first medical appointment she rescheduled for convenience. I remember showing up at the clinic and being told, "You're not on today's calendar." I smiled through. It went home and made tea. Later that night, I found a note on the fridge in Bree's handwriting. "Got you rebooked for next week. Saves you the drive." I told myself it was thoughtful. But something about the loop of her Y's and the slant of her signature nagged at me. My mind started cataloging them, every note, every post-it, every little form she filled out for me. I didn't know it back then. I would tell myself later, but I was collecting evidence without meaning to. There's a certain kind of loneliness that only widows know, the quiet, between footsteps, the empty chair that still has a dent in the cushion. You start filling that silence with lists, with routines, with documents. My blue folders multiplied: blue file 02, blue file 03, each one thicker than the last. I told myself it was just for organization, but deep down, I was building armor. One night, Skylar sat with me in the living room while I labeled folders. She asked Grandma, "Why do you keep so many papers?" I smiled. "Because paper remembers what people forget." She laughed like it was a joke, but her eyes, kind and curious, reminded me that someone was still watching, still learning what decency looks like. The last memory I have before everything began to unravel was ordinary. Tuesday morning coffee steaming in my favorite mug, the one with the chipped handle. I was balancing my checkbook when I noticed a transfer I hadn't made. Just a few $100 small enough to seem like a mistake. I printed the statement and slipped it into blue file 04. I didn't say a word, not yet. Because I'd learned something from years of watching machines break down. You don't stop the system mid-cycle. You let it run until it shows you where the real crack is. And I had a feeling mine was coming. It started with whispers, small ones. Bree had a way of saying things that sounded harmless until you replayed them in your head. "Mom's getting forgetful lately," she told Adam one night when she thought I couldn't hear. She called me twice today to ask the same thing. It's starting. I was standing in the hallway halfway through folding towels. My hand stopped midair. It's starting. The phrase hung in the air like mildew. Adam didn't answer. He didn't deny it either, just silence, the kind that stretches and says too much. I folded another towel, carefully. Perfect edges. That's what you do when the people you love start rewriting your story. You try to stay neat, controlled, factual. But whispers have a way of turning into paperwork. A week later, Bree dropped by after work, smiling too wide. "I talked to Dr. Patel," she said. "She thinks maybe we should get a baseline test for your memory, just precautionary." "I've been doing my own taxes since before you were born," I said, sipping tea. "I know," she cooed, tilting her head, "but things change, Lucy. It's best to be prepared." I smiled back. Prepared is my middle name. She didn't like that. After she left, I went straight to my filing cabinet. I opened blue file 04 and added a note. Feb. 6 Bree mentioned memory testing. Tone soft push. Then I scanned her message, printed it, and dated it. I didn't know if I'd ever need it. But experience taught me that truth, when left unwritten, becomes optional. Spring came early that year. Snow melted into dirty puddles that reflected gray skies, and the neighborhood smelled of damp leaves and exhaust. I kept my routine. Morning walks, grocery lists, Sudoku at the kitchen table. But under the rhythm, my gut was humming. Something was off. The confirmation came in the most ordinary way. I went to refill my prescription at the pharmacy, and the clerk said, "Your account shows an insurance update. Your daughter-in-law called to adjust it." My daughter-in-law. "Yes, ma'am. Bree Monahan Brennan. We have her listed as your secondary contact and power of attorney." The world tilted. Power of attorney. I walked home slower than usual, every step heavy as a verdict. When I got inside, I took off my coat, sat down, and opened my blue file. I started a new tab, unauthorized POA. The first page was blank, but not for long. I didn't sleep much that week. My mind cataloged everything. Every login, every receipt, every call. I ordered printed bank statements for the last 6 months, even though Bree insisted on e-statements only. When the envelopes arrived, I tore them open like lifeboats. That's when I found it 3 transactions to Northlake Care Solutions, LLC. The name felt familiar, like a cough you've heard before but can't place. I searched it online. No website, no listing, just a business registration filed under B. Monahan. That night, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to Patrick's empty pillow, "You'd know what to do." The next morning, I went to the garage. Patrick's old toolbox was still there, smelling like oil and dust. Inside it, wrapped in a rag, was the small key to our safety deposit box, something we hadn't used in years. I took it. I didn't know why yet, but I knew it was time to secure the things that mattered. Then fate gave me a gift, or maybe just timing. Our neighbor Dolly Paz waved me over one afternoon, phone in hand. "Lucy, you won't believe this," she said, lowering her voice like a gossip columnist. "I caught your daughter-in-law on my security cam at the post office last night. She was mailing something big, looked official. She looked nervous." I smiled politely, but inside my stomach flipped. I asked her to email me the clip. She did. The timestamp matched the day my bank account was changed. That was when I called Priya Desai, an estate lawyer recommended by an old friend from the shop. Her office smelled like lemon polish and certainty. She didn't waste words. "Mrs. Brennan, what you're describing fits the pattern of early financial coercion. If you don't secure your assets now, you could lose control of them without even knowing." She slid a brochure across the desk. Blue Lantern Trust, a mechanism that would protect my estate and, ironically, my sanity from anyone claiming incompetence. I signed the paperwork that week. While I was at it, Priya had a suggestion. "If she's forging documents, you'll need hard-proof chain of evidence, metadata, and a notarized competency statement." That's how I met Owen Kincaid, a retired financial investigator who looked like he'd been carved out of suspicion itself. He wore flannel shirts and carried a portable scanner. "You're smart to come early," he said. "Most people wait until they've already been erased." He traced the digital trail of Bree's fake forms. The metadata showed they were uploaded from her office computer. Every timestamp lined up with her shifts. Every login was hers. He even found the draft version stored in the printer queue. "She's sloppy," he said. "She thinks charm covers tracks." It was the first time in months I felt something like satisfaction. Meanwhile, Adam noticed my sudden calm. "You seem different," he said one night over dinner. "I'm just tired of being managed," I replied. Bree laughed. "Oh, don't be dramatic, Lucy. We're just helping." I looked up. Funny, I don't remember asking. That silent, sharp, and perfect was my small rebellion. I didn't know it then, but that dinner would be the start of my private countdown. Over the next 2 weeks, I followed my own system: quiet observation, precise documentation, patient planning. I let Bree believe she was still winning. She called banks. I called lawyers. She changed my appointments. I changed my will. She thought she was covering her tracks. I was building a map. Then came the moment everything clicked. I walked into Birch Avenue Bank to withdraw a small check, just routine. That's when I heard her voice through the frosted glass wall. Calm, rehearsed, deadly sweet. "Mrs. Brennan has dementia. We have medical documentation. I'm here to assume control of her accounts." I froze. The manager, Harold Kim, asked, "Do you have the physician's certificate?" "Yes," she said, sliding the papers across. I don't know what made me step forward, but I did. The look on her face when she saw me, color draining, lips parting. But no sound was something I'll never forget. I didn't say much. I didn't have to. I just placed my hand on the counter next to her fake papers and said, "Let's compare signatures, shall we?" And that was the day everything began to unravel. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call the police. I went home, made tea, and opened a new folder, Blue File 07, The Reckoning. Because what I'd learned in 70 years is this: you don't fight liars with emotion. You fight them with evidence and patience. And I had both. The next few days unfolded like a play I hadn't agreed to star in. Bree tried to act as if nothing had happened at the bank, but her smile carried a new twitch. She brought over lasagna, as if melted cheese could rewrite fraud. "We've all been under stress," she said, brushing her hair behind her ear, eyes darting toward Adam. "Let's just move on." "Sure," I said, slicing the food neatly into squares. "Moving on's easy when you forget the past, isn't it?" She blinked, unsure whether it was a jab or a joke. I didn't clarify. Let confusion do the work. That night, I labeled a new folder, Behavioral Patterns. Every manipulation, every sugar-coated jab, every call she made under my name went into it. I had recordings now, too. My house camera in the entryway picked up her voice on speakerphone, pretending to be me, to verify account access. Owen helped me isolate the audio. Her tone, her cadence, even the fake cough she added to sound older, all preserved. By the end of that week, she knew something was off. She started probing. "Mom, I noticed you've been meeting with people. Lawyers, maybe?" "Book club," I said calmly. "We're reading about trust." She laughed, forced and hollow. "That's cute." The next morning, I found my mailbox open, papers shuffled, one envelope torn. "Dolly from next door saw it, too." "Bree stopped by while you were out," she whispered over the fence. "Said she was picking up a form you asked for." I hadn't asked for anything. That's when I decided to bait her. I left a decoy letter on my counter, a fake draft of a will sealed in an envelope labeled executor copy. Inside was nothing but a grocery list and a single line written in red pen. Always assume the lock is broken. 2 days later, the envelope was gone. Bree didn't mention it, neither did I, but she stopped pretending to be casual. Instead, she started gaslighting, gentle, subtle, designed to disorient. "Mom, you forgot to turn off the stove again," she said one evening. "I wasn't cooking today." She sighed. "You probably just don't remember." My heart pounded not from fear, but from recognition. This was how you erase someone, not by taking their money, but by taking their credibility. That night, I sat at my desk, flipping through Blue Files 07. Evidence wasn't enough anymore. I needed control. Legal, airtight control. So I met with Priya again. We went over the structure of the Blue Lantern Trust, assets transferred power of attorney, revoked all notarized and recorded, with timestamp footage of me reading and signing the documents. Once this goes live, Priya said they can't touch a cent, but you'll need to be ready for the blowback. I smiled. I'm counting on it. The blowback came faster than expected. That weekend, Adam showed up alone. His voice was shaky but rehearsed. "Mom, Bree's been worried about you. We both have. Maybe it's time you consider letting us help manage things." "Manage things," I echoed. "Like my life." He looked down. "Just finances. Bills, healthcare, small stuff. You know how complicated this gets." I studied him, his nervous hands, his good heart twisted into submission. "Adam," I said softly, "when you were little, you once told me you wanted to build machines that fix broken things. Do you remember that?" He nodded slowly. "Then stop being the one who breaks them." He left without another word. Bree didn't call for 3 days after that. But when snakes retreat, it's not surrender, it's calculation. By the 4th day, I got a notice from my bank account temporarily frozen due to pending guardianship inquiry. I called Harold Kim directly. His voice was uneasy. "Mrs. Brennan, your daughter-in-law filed a preliminary guardianship claim citing cognitive decline and irregular spending. The court's reviewing it." I didn't even flinch. "And did she include her fraudulent doctor?" He hesitated. "She did submit medical paperwork, yes." "Good," I said, because that's the last piece I needed. That night, I added another document to my blue file, a certified letter addressed to the court clerk, including Priya's competency certificate dated and signed by 2 independent physicians. I knew the process now let her trap herself in her own documentation. Every lie she wrote was another nail I didn't have to hammer. Owen came by 2 days later. "She's getting desperate," he said, handing me photos. "She's started deleting files off her clinic computer. But it's too late. The system logs everything." I looked at the photo Bree sitting at her desk, face lit by the blue glow of her monitor panic, etched into her posture. "Funny," I murmured, "she still thinks this is about money." Owen frowned. "What's it about then?" "Respect," I said, "and the lesson that even the smallest lie leaves a receipt." Outside, the wind howled across the bay, shaking the old siding of my house. I felt the chill, but it wasn't unpleasant. It felt like clarity. Because for the first time, the fear was hers, and I was just getting started. I could tell the tide had turned the moment Bree stopped smiling when she saw me. Her face, usually composed like a porcelain mask, had hairline cracks, now tiny fractures of panic. She couldn't quite sand smooth. She dropped by one afternoon with Skylar pretending everything was fine. "We thought we'd bring you some muffins, Mom," she chirped. "You've been so busy lately, we just wanted to check in." Skylar ran ahead, hugging me tight, her warmth like sunlight cutting through storm clouds. But Bree lingered by the doorway, her eyes darting toward my desk, toward the folders stacked neatly in the corner. "You've been organizing again," she said lightly. "It keeps me sharp," I replied. She nodded, pretending not to notice the camcorder quietly recording from the shelf. Over tea, she started weaving her story. "Adam and I just think, maybe it's time to plan for your long-term comfort. You deserve peace of mind." I stirred my cup. "And you'd handle that peace of mind, I suppose." "Well, someone has to." Her voice softened to that careful tone manipulators use when they think they're still in control. I let her talk. Let her build her own noose word by word. Then Skylar interrupted, sweet, oblivious, sincere. "Mom, Grandma showed me how to balance a checkbook. She says every number's a promise." Bree froze. Her eyes flicked to me, sharp and cold, before she forced a smile. "That's nice, honey. But Grandma doesn't need to worry about numbers anymore. We're handling everything." I turned to Skylar. "Promises only matter if the person keeping them has integrity. Remember that." Bree's hand tightened on the mug. She left soon after muffins untouched. That night I reviewed the footage. Every word, every shift in her tone captured perfectly. Owen was right. She wasn't just greedy. She was sloppy. By the next morning, the escalation began in earnest. First came the accidental missed medication delivery. The pharmacy claimed Bree had canceled my automatic refill due to conflicting prescriptions. Then, The appointment with my cardiologist mysteriously vanished from the system. Your daughter-in-law called to reschedule, the nurse explained. It was no longer just financial control, it was erasure by attrition. Death by 1,000 bureaucratic cuts. But she underestimated one thing I documented: everything. Owen installed a discrete backup cloud linked to every camera in my home, every email archive, every file I touched. Priya advised me to wait until she crossed one last legal threshold. Once she tries to assume medical guardianship, she said we move. That's when the trust activates. And Bree, in her arrogance, handed me exactly that. On a gray Tuesday morning, a letter arrived from the county probate office, notice of intent to petition for guardianship, filed by Brielle Monahan Brennan. Attached were medical reports from one Dr. Felix Ward, the same fake name she'd used before. I read it twice, then smiled. That evening, I called Adam. Dinner Sunday. You and Bree. No excuses. My voice was calm, deliberate. We need to clear the air. He hesitated. Is this about the guardianship thing, Bree said? It's about the truth, I said. And I think you should hear it directly from me. He agreed. For the next 4 days, I prepared the battlefield. The dining table was set the way Patrick used to like it. Crisp white linen silver cutlery candles trimmed. I placed blue Files 07 in the center next to a small USB drive. The air smelled faintly of lemon oil and quiet fury. When Sunday came, they arrived holding hands, the perfect portrait of concern. Skylar stayed home with Dolly. Good. She didn't need to see this. Bree started before she even sat down. Lucy, we're not here to fight. We're here to help you understand that we're all on the same team. Are we? I asked. Because it feels like I've been playing defense for quite some time. Her smile faltered. I pressed play on the small speaker beside me. Her own voice filled the room. Once she loses legal control, the house is ours. She won't even know what hit her. Adam went pale. Bree, what the hell is that? Bree stammered. That's taken out of context. I opened the blue file. Context like this. I laid out documents one by one. The fake POA, the phony doctor's note, the log of her computer uploads. Or perhaps this. I slid forward a still frame from Dolly's video, Bree, at the post office envelope, in hand, timestamped the same day as the bank claim. The silence was absolute. You could hear the clock ticking in the next room. Adam sank into his chair. You forged her signature? Adam, she whispered, voice trembling. I was just trying to protect us. I leaned back. Funny. I thought family protected each other from predators, not became them. Her eyes glistened, but I knew better than to mistake guilt for remorse. I didn't tell them that every second of that confrontation was being recorded. I didn't mention that Priya already had the footage, the trust, and a pre-filed affidavit with the Elder Financial Protection Bureau. All I said was, you've both forgotten something. I built my life balancing ledgers. Numbers don't lie. People do. Bree stood abruptly, shaking, and hissed, You'll regret this. I smiled. No, dear, I document too well for that. She stormed out. Adam followed, silent, broken. When the door closed, I sat alone in the quiet. The candles flickered. For a moment, I felt nothing. No triumph, no rage. Just clarity. Because this wasn't the end. It was the audit before judgment, and I was still reconciling the numbers. The Sunday dinner confrontation had been only the opening act. The real reckoning began 5 days later inside my house, the same one where I'd raised my son, buried my husband, and now prepared to bury every lie my daughter-in-law had written about me. It was late afternoon when the knock came. Not a polite one, a hard, hurried rap that made the wind chime rattle. I already knew who it was. Bree stood on the porch, hair-sleek lipstick, sharp eyes, red-rimmed, but defiant. She clutched a folder thick with papers. Behind her, Adam hovered like a shadow, guilt clinging to him like damp clothes. Lucy, she began, voice trembling with manufactured concern. We need to talk before things get out of hand. Things already are, I said, stepping aside. Come in. The air inside was heavy with the scent of rain and lemon polish. The dining table was bare except for the blue file. She saw it immediately and stiffened. You shouldn't be doing this, she said. You're confused. Adam and I, we just want what's best for you. Is that what they call forgery now? Best intentions. Her lips twitched, but she pressed on. You don't understand how serious this is. There's a guardianship hearing next week. The judge will see the medical records. I cut her off, my voice calm as glass. Which records exactly? The ones signed by a non-existent Dr. Felix Ward, or the ones notarized by my attorney and 2 state-licensed physicians confirming I'm mentally sound? She blinked. For the first time, she didn't have a script. I know what you've done, Bree. I know about North Lake Care Solutions. I know you funneled $12,000 in consulting fees, salt fees, through an LLC that doesn't exist outside your laptop. Adam looked like someone had slapped the breath out of him. Bree, is that true? She glared at me. You have no proof. Actually, I said softly, I have everything. I reached for the small remote beside me and pressed play. The TV flickered on, filling the room with the grainy black and white footage Owen had helped me recover from the house security system. There was Bree in the living room a week earlier, pacing, whispering into her phone. The audio crackled, but her words were clear. Once she signs the medical release, I'll move the assets. Adam doesn't need to know. Her face drained of color. That's illegal, recording me without consent. It's my house, I said. My rules. Wisconsin is a one-party consent state. You should have done your homework. The silence that followed was almost beautiful. Adam sat down slowly, rubbing his temples. Jesus, Bree, I can't believe this. You think she's not manipulating you? Bree snapped, pointing at me. She's turning you against your own wife. She's old, Adam. She doesn't know what she's doing. I stood steady and slow, like I had all the time in the world. Old doesn't mean blind. You tried to make me disappear, Bree, but you forgot I keep receipts. I lifted the blue file and placed it on the table between us. The papers fanned out like cards in a magician's trick. Bank statements, printed emails, digital timestamps. This, I said, is every lie you've told. Documented, notarized, and already filed under my trust's legal custody. Bree's voice cracked. You can't. I said. And I did. Adam rose, trembling. Mom, please. Don't take this to court. It'll destroy everything. It's already destroyed, I replied. I'm just naming what's left. Bree's mask finally crumbled. She slammed her palms against the table, sending the papers fluttering like startled birds. You think anyone will believe you? You're 70 years old and paranoid. Everyone knows memory goes first. I smiled slow and cold. Then they'll enjoy watching this. I turned on the laptop beside me. The video Priya had recorded appeared timestamp certified. Me sitting in her office, answering cognitive and legal competency questions with 2 doctors present. Their signatures at the end glowed under the blue verification seal. Bree's knees buckled. She sat down hard. You set me up, she whispered. No, I said softly. You set yourself up. I just kept the book straight. Adam covered his face with his hands. His voice was muffled but raw. I didn't know it was this bad. Bree, how could you? Tears streaked down her cheeks, black with mascara. I did it for us, she said. For Nora's future. I leaned forward, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. You don't secure a child's future by stealing from her grandmother. The air hung heavy, alive with shame. Even the refrigerator hum seemed to pause. Finally, I stood, gathering the papers, stacking them neatly, my last act of order before the storm. Tomorrow morning, I said, my attorney will submit these to the county's Elder Protection Division. You'll get a call from Investigator Lopez. Be honest, it's your only chance. Bree's voice rose shrill and desperate. You're ruining this family. I looked at her for a long, quiet moment. No, Bree. You ruined it the moment you decided to replace love with a ledger. Adam reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't, I said gently. I've done enough saving for one lifetime. I turned to the door. Through the window, the sky was bruised purple, the first drops of rain tapping like Morse code against the glass. I opened it and let the cold air pour in. Behind me, Bree was sobbing. Adam stood frozen, a man finally seeing the wreckage he'd ignored. I looked over my shoulder, once meeting her eyes one last time. You thought you could rewrite my story, I said quietly. But I still hold the pen. Then I stepped outside. The rain hit my face like needles, but it felt clean, like the world was washing itself of her lies. For the first time in months, my breath came easy. That night I sat by the window with a cup of chamomile tea, the blue file resting beside me. Lightning flashed over the lake, illuminating the reflection of a woman I barely recognized. Tired, yes, but unbroken. I whispered to the darkness, Patrick, it's done. But even as the thunder rolled, I knew this wasn't the end. Justice was coming, and it would arrive quietly like a checkbook balanced to zero, precise, inevitable, and fair. And for the first time in years, I smiled, because this time the numbers were on my side. The next morning broke calm and gray, the kind of quiet that makes even the birds hesitate. I woke before sunrise, brewed my coffee, and watched the steam curl through the dim kitchen light. My hands didn't shake anymore. By 9:02 a.m., the phone rang. It was Priya. It's done, she said. The Blue Lantern Trust is officially active. Every asset, every account, every property secured. She can't touch a cent. I exhaled slowly. And the guardianship petition, withdrawn by court order. Investigator Lopez delivered your recordings to the district office at 8:15. They're opening a criminal inquiry. Good, I said. It's time someone teaches her what accountability looks like. Priya's voice softened. Lucy, you could press for full prosecution, but you could also let the trust handle it. What do you want? I looked at the blue file on my desk, the symbol of every fight, every sleepless night, every quiet humiliation I'd turned into armor. I don't want revenge, I said slowly. I want documentation. Priya chuckled under her breath. That's the accountant in you talking. Maybe I said, but numbers don't lie and neither do signatures. After the call, I went outside. The autumn air smelled of wet leaves and cold earth. Across the street, Dolly was trimming her rose bushes. She waved. Heard the news, Lucy. You finally got her, huh? I smiled faintly. I just gave her the rope. She decided what to do with it. That night, I sat by the fireplace, Skylar's latest drawing propped beside me. A crooked little house, under a bright yellow sun, and in shaky letters, Grandma's home forever. I traced the words with my finger and felt something settle in my chest. Peace. Not victory, just peace. On the table, my laptop blinked a new email from Priya, with the subject line Harbor Light Fund Draft Charter. I opened it. The first line read, a nonprofit trust supporting elder victims of financial exploitation. I stared at it for a long moment, then typed back, approved draft. Let's make it official. Outside, the wind picked up rattling the windows, but it no longer sounded threatening. It sounded like applause. I closed the laptop, leaned back, and whispered to the empty room. They thought they could silence me. Instead, they handed me the microphone. And somewhere between the fire's crackle and the ticking clock, I realized the best revenge isn't anger. It's surviving loudly with everything documented, signed, and sealed. If you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, hit subscribe. Because stories like mine aren't rare. They're just rarely spoken aloud. They call it betrayal when it comes from strangers, but when it comes from your own home, it becomes a lesson. A reminder that silence can be strength and preparation is its sharpest form of revenge. So tell me, where are you watching from? Because whether you're in Milwaukee or halfway across the world, you deserve to be heard, believed, and protected. This story isn't over. Not while women like me keep receipts.